Welcome to the Racing Pigeon International Podcast. We talk about everything racing pigeons, the latest news, results, events, and interviews from around the world.
Howdy folks, I hope you're well. Sorry for the delay. Just trying to get the chat working, the all-in-one chat working, which isn't working. So, hope you're well anyway. Welcome to this, the very first new RPI Podcast live stream. Some of you may know I used to do a weekly show every Monday at 8 o'clock. I stopped doing that a while ago, and over the last few months, 6 weeks now, I've been doing the RPI podcast, and it's been going really well. And the great thing with a podcast is people can listen to it, watch it, and they can listen to it or watch it wherever they are. And been going really well. The one I did last week about the stats, the UK One Loft Race stats, had like 800 people listen to it, which was amazing. So yeah, thank you for that. So we're here, we're back. This is a live podcast. If you're a podcast subscriber to the RPI podcast, you can listen to this if you don't catch it live, but it's live. And we're going to be doing it every Monday, the first Monday of every month at 8 o'clock UK time. So first Monday every month, UK time, will be the live edition of the RPI podcast. And as you can see below here, you can listen to all the other podcasts, interviews, and all of that good stuff at podcast.racingpigeoninternational.com. So yeah. And all of the lives will be here as well. So if you've got any questions, because the chat system in this thing I'm using isn't logging me in for some reason, if you've got any questions, I'm going to be checking my phone for comments. In theory, I should have it all here on my screen, but I haven't. Technology, isn't it great? What I like about this technology is that you can stream. We're streaming to the RPI pages, the RPI group, YouTube, etc. But it's not logging me in properly for the chat for some reason. So I'm going to be checking my phone for comments, and I'm happy to say Robin Moore's watching, Alec Benson's watching. How you doing? Hope you're well. So that's on my profile, and I'll check over the course of this podcast to see who else is on and look for comments, which is old school way doing it on my phone. So I'm excited to be back. It's good to be back and live. I did miss it, and I love doing these podcasts. Definitely the future. Because it reaches so many more people. People can listen to it on their smart speakers in their home, their phone, their computer, even their cars, which is great. And like I said, last week I put out the UK One Loft Race stats for the year for 2022. Hundreds of people in the first hour. I think in the first 24 hours, over 600 people downloaded it or viewed it, which is great. Speaking of those stats, I'm going to go through them again because they have been updated since I first put them out. And the podcast I did covering them stats is actually out of date now. And I'm going to go through them. I'm going to also be talking about the overseas One Loft races as well today. We're going to be shouting out to the Algarve winners as well. I'm going to be giving you a bit of a update on where Zandy's at, my son is at with his racing and the season he's had, and a whole bunch more. I've got some list. I've got a list. What I'm hoping is where I used to do the weekly lives, it could get hard to speak about stuff, but doing a once a month live, it should, in theory, be really easy to have stuff to talk about. Because doing a once a week live can be challenging for content, especially in the off season. So yeah, Barry Rogers is here. How you doing, Barry? Yeah, Elevators Loft. I'm 6 hours ahead of you. You're in the US. Yeah, Andy Pereira says many would have missed my original show, which is true. They're still on YouTube now. But yeah, I guess people would have missed those because it was a while ago now. I think it was a good 18 months, if not 2 years ago, that I stopped doing them. But let me tell you, I'm really pleased with the new podcast and the new format, how it's working. It's a great thing to be audio as well as video. People don't need to see me. It's great if there's an interview like we had Ian Evans on as well. So as an interview, it's great. But it's good to just listen. So we've got Stephen Morgan watching. We've got quite a few people watching. Andy Pereira's watching, Robert Valentine, Darren Aitken. So yeah, all good. Excellent. If you've got a comment, let me know. Put it in the chat. Like I said, it's a bit clunky. I tested this last week as a test, a little 5-minute live chat, live thing, and the chat worked fine. Typical. Paul Stokes is watching. How you doing, Paul? I hope you're well. So yeah, I'll be going between that I'll be going between the comments on my phone, which is far from. I can see what I'm going to do really quickly. 1 second. I'm going to get the group up on my other phone, so at least I can be monitoring two lots rather than switching backward and forward. So apologies for that. That's why we were. That's why I was late coming on, because I was desperate to try and get the group working. But as with technology, these things don't always play games. Like I say, what really pees me off is that it was all working great last week when I did a little test. I could see all the chats coming in, and for some reason it's logged me out, and it won't, no matter what I do, log me back in. But I don't for 1 minute think that I've been hacked or anything like that. I just think it's one of those technical things. And yeah, so I've got that. I can see comments on that. All good. Soren Dudu's watching on the group. David Reynolds says good luck. Thank you very much. Paul Smith is watching, and 33 other people are watching on there. So great, all good. So let's get into it. And I just wanted to go through. Well, first of all, if you haven't seen the podcast page, it's simply podcast.racingpigeoninternational.com. And all of the podcasts. So as soon as I put a new podcast out there, it goes up to here automatically. All right. You'll see them all up here. So this one will go up there. Everything will go up there automatically. You'll see all of the podcasts that I've got there. And then you can also look at each individual podcast as well. There's a link to that. So you can go to podcast.racingpigeoninternational.com and you can see all the podcasts I've done, even if you can't watch them live. And then every podcast is also on the YouTube channel that we've got. So you can watch that on YouTube if you prefer as well. So that's the podcast page. So let's talk about these One Loft stats. So here's the One Loft stats that I put out last week. As I say, they have been updated. I spoke to a few One Loft Race owners, and obviously these stats are all took off Benzing Live, and a few of the stats were not quite correct because obviously the clocks had been turned off, and other people, there was other pigeons that had come back after the clock had been turned off. So I updated them. So to the best of my knowledge, these stats are about the best. They're pretty much as accurate as you can get. Gary Brown says, good luck. Thank you very much, Gary. So we caught up on there. So yeah, so these are the as up to date as we can get, as I've got. I am going to be doing the international stats in the next week or so. Similar to this, I think it'd be good to compare. So here we go. this is in alphabetical order. The initial list is just simply in alphabetical order, apart from Barcelona One Loft Race at the bottom, which I'll explain about, and you can see there. So Cotswold Valley, new One Loft Race, total prize money of £14,800. They're paying out 51%. They started with 386 pigeons. They did 263 mile, 12 training tosses. Again, the training tosses are only what is on benzing. I know some of these races have done training without them being on the benzene system. So disclaimer there. I know for a fact there will be some short trainings done that are not recorded on the benzene. This is from benzene system only. Hello to Les Pinfield, who's joined us as well. 263 miles. They start with 386 pigeons. They had a great prior pre-training. They start with 376 in training. They had a bit of a hit going into hotspot 1, and they finished up with 13.73% of the birds back from their final. Birds that went to the final, nearly 21% went to the final. 13.73% came back. So that 13-something% for this year seems to be quite a common figure. So well done to Cotswold Valley, brand new race. What's interesting there is the square foot per pigeon, 2.5 square foot per pigeon. When it comes to the square foot per pigeon, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. This is based on the closed loft. No aviaries, no nothing. So the reason behind not including aviaries is because most of these birds are on the dark in these One Loft races, and therefore it's important to know the space they've got when they're on the dark. So it doesn't include aviaries. Going on then to the Northwest One Loft race, 15,000 prize money, £150 per pigeon, prize payout of 56.82%, square footage of 4.55 square foot per pigeon. They hammered these birds training, 584 miles of training in 36 tosses. They started with 176 pigeons. They had a bit of a nightmare compared to others prior to training, but actually then turned it around. They're the best. They started with 33% going into the final, and they had 21.59% back. Actually, I think there's a few more pigeons back from that now, so that percentage may be up a little bit more than the 38 pigeons back, 21% back though. That's the best One Loft race in the UK by birds back from the final. Pride of the Potterers, these stats have been updated. Total prize money is £73,390, paying out 46.12%. 46.12%, 287 miles of training and 22 tosses. They came back with 16.03%. So well done to them. The RPI One Loft Race didn't have a great year. I'm a big fan of Jeremy. I think he's a great guy, but they've had a bit of a nightmare. They certainly put the training in, 455 miles of training over 29 tosses. They started with 1,496 birds. They started with just short of 75% of them birds into training. So again, they had a bit of a hit prior to training. They sent 27% of their birds to the final, and they got 11.2% back. That actually is the one stat that may need updating. There may be birds back since then. So I do need to look at that. 9.38% is showing. I think they may have more birds back than 140. I do need to look at updating that. Then we move on to Shropshire One Loft Race, brand new race this year. Wade Davis runs it. Nice guy. One of the best Facebook Live updates that I've seen on my timeline. Wade's always on there updating everybody. Total prize money of £31,000, 51% of the payout, 2.62 feet square foot per pigeon. Again, put the training in before, 495 miles over 27 training tosses. They started with 366 birds. They went into training with 366 birds. The only one that went in with every single pigeon that started into training. And they had a few issues on hotspots, to be fair. They basketed 100 pigeons to the final, 27% of the going into the final, and they had 11.2% back from the final. Barcelona One Loft Race is deferred until spring due to bird flu restrictions. Who Dares wins race, paying out £110,000 in prize money, 166.67 average per bird. This year paying out 35.18%, 456 miles over 29 training tosses, and they finished with 13.49% of their pigeons. So that's the overall stats. And then we've got some more graphs here. You can see the different One Loft races over that, how you can graphically see them. Which is interesting to look at. Percentage payouts are there. You can see them. The loft space are there and all of that good stuff. And then the notes, as the notes were being updated, that's that. You can see there. So if you come back to this, the average was higher than last year's stats, actually. The average back from the final was higher than last year. Northwest at 21.59 is the best for how many pigeons you get back from the final. And again, as people have said, and it's completely right, all I can go on are the stats available to me. Each one of them hotspot races, the finals, they all obviously have different sets of weather conditions on the day, all kinds of manner of things to take into consideration. And of course, some people had better final race conditions than others. And that has to be factored in. I've said before, I think having these stats for UK One Loft races is a good thing because it's transparent. Everybody can see what's there. But of course, it comes down to individual elements. Some people had bad hotspot races due to a multitude of reasons. Some people had easier finals than others. Of course, there's then things to be put in there. But including in these stats this year, the amount of training tosses, like, 584 miles Northwest One Loft Race trained. I was told by Chris Ryan that actually they had a bunch of 2-mile training tosses before they even started on benzing. So it's not 100% in that I'm only going off what's on benzing, but I think the square footage is interesting per pigeon. And again, that square footage is when all of the pigeons are in the loft before they start training. So obviously the square footage is going to get better per pigeon, the less pigeons that are in the loft. But again, it gives you an indication of the starting amounts. So I am going to be doing the UK. I'm going to be doing the international ones. I'm going to keep this page updated for the UK ones. And the overall idea is that it's a good thing for people to see. People can see how much square footage there is in the loft, how much the entry fees are per pigeon, what the prize payouts are, how many training tosses they had, etc. Yeah, I'm a stats geek. I love this stuff, but I think it's interesting. If somebody that's interested in One Loft races, I think it's good to have this information. I hope you agree. So that's those. And then I wanted to give some shout outs to the Algarve-based races that have just happened over the last week or so. The Mira, Portugal is a relatively new One Loft Race. And those guys had their final on the 24th of September. They sent 1,435 pigeons back to the final. They had a hit, let's call it as it is. They had a hit on the final. They're still waiting for 876 pigeons. And again, all of these stats are going to go into similar thing to like you've just seen. The Romanians did really well. Sorin Florea and Angelo Genavosi took first one for top spot there. So well done to him, and well done to Team Florea Sorin for getting 2 in the top 10 there as well. I think I'm right in saying this is the first year of this new Mira Portugal race, and it'll be interesting to see what the stats are for those comparatively. The next one that finished just this weekend is the Algarve Great Derby that happened on Friday. So we've got Gert Rootman. Dutch Pigeon came in first. Well done to Murphy's Mob, coming in at first UK Open and fourth overall Open. Well done to Roy Davis in Wales for coming sixth as well. Very impressive there at looking at them stats. Very well done to you all. And again, sent 2,063 pigeons to the final. They're still waiting on 1,167 birds to come back. So again, it's still hard. These finals are hard. The Great Algarve Great Derby, I wanted to give a special shout out to Mark Ward from Team Tink's Treasures. Got the ace pigeon. After 3 years of hard work, got the ace pigeon for the Algarve Great Derby. Well done to him. I know he's super chuffed. And also well done to Chris Turner and Debbie Neal coming in sixth ace pigeon as well from the UK. Really well done to you guys. And Mark posted a little video on his timeline of said pigeon. I know he's super proud, and it's great that he's managed to get the ace pigeon. So well done to Mark for that. And then the Algarve Golden Race, the winner was Martin Steffi. I met Martin the first time in Portugal, 2019. Nice guy, does a lot in One Loft races, and he took the top spot. And the pigeon clocked in 47 seconds before number 2. Well done to Martin Steffi for taking the top one. It's a hell of a race. And again, they basketed 3,622 pigeons. They're still waiting for 1,867 pigeons. So, yeah, still waiting for more than half of their pigeons back. We'll just check to see who's in. There's Penfield, Martin Fuller, King's Cockbirds is watching. Thank you for watching and listening. Vincent McConnell's watching. Mark Walker's watching. Alan Brown's watching. Thank you. Any comments? Let me know. So yeah, well done to Martin Steffi for taking top spot in the Algarve Golden Race. A couple of other things I wanted to mention, and then we'll get off One Loft races and talk about other stuff. A shout out to Tony Byrne. Tony runs the Barcelona race, One Loft race. It's a different type of race. It's spread out over 3 years. But Tony is always looking to look forward. And for 2023, he is introducing, I believe it's the first UK One Loft race, may even be in Europe, to offer live GPS tracking technology. So you will be able to watch live your pigeons in the One Loft race where they are. That, to me, personally, I think is game changing. I think it's a big step forward to be able to track pigeons live, not retrospectively once they've come back, but track pigeons live in One Loft races. And a big well done to Tony for putting the work in and getting that done. So well done to him on the shout out there. And the last thing I want to talk about with One Loft races is the Northwest One Loft race. I said before, they came out top pretty much always round this year. And before I go on, excuse me 1 second, need some water. Before I go on about this, let me just say now, these stats are meant to help One Loft races. Most of the One Loft races that were on that list were very keen to make sure the stats were correct, obviously, and be a part of it. I am a big fan of One Loft races. I think to a degree as they are now and some of the things moving forward, like we've just seen Tony with the live tracking, I think that can be a big part of the sport moving forward. I don't put these stats out for any other reason as information for customers of these One Loft races to see. But I also put them out to be able to help the One Loft races. One, they can look at, right, where do we stand? What do we need to do? What do we need to improve? And apart from One Loft race on that list, which I'm not even going to go into now, we all know the story. Apart from One Loft race on that list, I've got big respect for all of those, for these guys putting the hard work in to setting these One Loft races up. 2 of them are brand new this year. I've got all the best intentions to help them as best I can, promote what they're doing. And these stats are for their customers and for people that want to look at them. There's no other hidden agenda, as some people are trying to hint. We all know I have no time for the owners of one of the One Loft races on there. It's well documented. Not going down that rabbit hole. But apart from them, I've got big respect for every single One Loft race on that list. I think you're going to see more coming up. You're going to see more launching. And I think it's good. One thing I will say is what hit me doing them stats is that the losses weren't as big in the smaller teams of pigeons, percentage-wise. Percentages are what matter. The losses weren't as big. I don't know what that says, but to me, I interpret it that the smaller One Loft race losses don't lose as many percentage-wise as the bigger ones. I don't know. Yeah, Vincent McConnell's just said, wow, something that is Tony, talking about the live tracking. That is the kind of thinking in the UK that we need. I was in China 2019. They have live tracking capabilities there. They had them 2019. They've been using them. But the technology didn't work at the time in the UK and Europe. Tony's found it. He's got it working. He did tests. If you go to his Facebook page, you can see the tests he did. It's working. He's implementing it. Game-changing stuff, forward-thinking, great. That's the kind of thing we need. I actually am speaking to somebody in Taiwan that's finishing their tests of some tracking if they can work in the UK and Europe. It'd be fascinating. I've said for years, live tracking will be a game changer. Now, some people say, I hate the idea. I don't want to know where the pigeons are. It takes it away from the excitement of waiting for the pigeon. Each to their own. I personally think live tracking will be a game changer and can be one of the things that enables this sport to open up to the masses. Ashley Steer's watching. I hope you're well, Ashley. Yeah, I think it can help to open up this sport to the masses. Live tracking. Imagine the ability to be able to see pigeons live and where they are. That's great. Right. So I wanted to say quickly about Northwest One Loft Race. Right. Small race, 400 pigeons in the loft, designed specifically for that reason. But what I like about what Chris Ryan's done is, again, he's took some inspiration from outside of the UK and he's trying to implement it into this country. And like he said on his broadcast, if you go to China, you'll see 24 lofts, all individual lofts, race from one location. Everybody's got their own loft manager. They all race them pigeons in the loft in their own race, but then they have kind of like a championship amongst all of the races. He took that as inspiration. And now, because his loft is full, he said, right, I'm going to bring my plans forward a year ahead. And he's opening up another loft. Now, some would say, hang on a minute, that's not a one loft race. Well, it is, because each loft runs completely separately, has its own prize money separately, has its own loft manager. So essentially what he's doing is he's running 2 one loft races from 2 locations a mile or so apart. And you as a customer can choose, right, I'm going to go in loft 1 only, or loft 2 only, or I'm going to put pigeons into both. The prize money is the same for the new loft. They get trained. I think they get trained together and the hotspots go up together. And obviously that means they got to split off, break off. But to me, it's a great idea. You can go into one loft, so one loft race is normal. You can put 2 pigeons in, have 1 pigeon in each loft, and you've got 2 bites of the cherry to get prize money. So he's running essentially 2 one loft races simultaneously. I think that's a great idea. And that's the kind of idea we need in the UK. So you've got Tony with his live tracking. You've got Chris Ryan within running 2 one loft races on the same day, at the same time, 2 separate loft managers, 2 separate prize pool. Amazing. I think that's great forward thinking, and well done to these people I've just mentioned. Baz Nichols watching. Thank you for tuning in, Baz. So yeah, that's the kind of ideas we need. And I've said before, I think you'll see a lot smaller. Chris said that first loft will never go above 400 pigeons. The second loft will go never above 400 pigeons. So you've got a relatively small team for one loft racing being managed by one person. That's really great and progressive. So you can check out his video in Northwest One Loft Race if you want to look at what he's doing as well. Right, so that's enough for one loft races for now. So yeah, my boy Zandy, who's now 18, approaching 19, his second proper year racing, really. He didn't race last year, young birds, too much focus on A-levels. He did great on his A-levels, got A's and B's. Things have progressed. If you were watching my old shows before, things, obviously, time moves on and people get older. Some of us more than others. And Zandy started his young bird season. They changed the club the Feddies in, rather than going southwest that they did the year before that. This year was pretty much a dead south race. Certainly, Zandy had better returns this year. I think he finished up with about 42 something % of his pigeons left, maybe 40. That kid was up 4 o'clock in the morning, training young birds twice a day. And I'm really super proud of him for breaking his novice status this year. So he got his first club win this year, which I'm really pleased about. That was obviously the first goal for him to get his club win. Next year, obviously, his eyes are on the Fed. He's reducing his stock numbers. Definitely reducing the amount of stock is beneficial. And he's super focused on next year now. Like I said, he was up at 4 a.m, training twice a day. I don't know how many miles those pigeons did training, but he put the effort in and he got his first club win, which is great. He's had a few knocks. He sent to France. I think he sent 5 back and he got 2.5 back. But why 2.5? How can I have half a pigeon? Well, one of the pigeons ended up deciding that it wasn't going to fly any further than pool, and funnily enough went into a loft of somebody we know. So it had a stop off for a week, fed back up, and she came back. So 3 out of 5 from France. We went to Mark Walker, who's tuned in. We went to Mark Walker's. I took him over for a bit of inspiration from Mark last week. Wow, what a setup. I'm going to be doing a video on Mark's new setup and what he's got going on. And I've always been a fan of long distance racing, but I just haven't got the time to do it with everything I've got, work-wise, business-wise, family, everything. Zandy started off with sprint racing, then got hooked into the idea of sending over the channel. Got 3 out of 3 birds back from Guernsey last year. It's one of the few races he did last year with some yearling hens. And now he's had a bit of a shift in mindset. Yes, in theory, long distance pigeons are easier to look after every day, routine wise. But I think, well, I know he's going to be going back to, certainly for young birds next year, focusing on sprint pigeons. He's going to be racing some sprint pigeons for other people, and he's got his Hercules family around as well, which is out and out sprinters. So he was sad to see racing finished, and he's looking forward to next year. And now he's done his first club. He's moving on to first fed. Again, things change as time goes on. He got great A-level results. He'd already got a job lined up before he got those results. So he's got a full-time job now. He's a trainee site surveyor, which comes with its benefits because he's got a van which he uses for work. It's a works van, and he gets a diesel card. And his bosses have said as long as he doesn't take the mick too much, he can use the van to train the pigeons. So he's dead happy that he can train his pigeons and it not cost him anything, because he was getting used to, before this job started, he was seeing some of the real world about how much it costs in fuel and what have you, especially with the fuel prices these days, how much it costs to train pigeons these days. So he's fell on his feet in that he's got a van which he can fit as many pigeons as he wants in to train, and he's got some free diesel courtesy of company. So he's good. And it's he's looking forward to next year. As I say, he's cutting down on his stock. He's going to be racing some pigeons from somebody else next year as well as his own stock, and he's looking forward to that. Super dedicated, super enthusiastic, and he's looking forward to some of the shows coming up. So yeah, that's an update on Zandy. I mentioned if you haven't seen me before, I've talked about milers, pigeons that are designed or bred to fly 1 mile only. It was big up in Barnsley area of Yorkshire in the UK many years ago. I still think there's something there with them. There's not many people that have got them anymore. They used to fly, if you don't know about it, Google what milers were. They used to fly small lofts into one little area. Everybody ran their own loft. And these pigeons used to fly a mile. And there's reports of pigeons flying under bridges, down what do you call them? Down entrance paths to houses, the sides of houses, flying at like 2 foot above the floor, the ground. Like 54 seconds to do a mile. It was some of the best milers around. I've been collecting these milers as they come up. We've got a collection of between Zanny and I, we've got a collection of about 40 milers at the moment. The main man up in Yorkshire's Eric Pickersgill. We've got some birds from him. I've been collecting birds as they go away. I still think milers could be something to resurrect. But for now, I'm just collecting them as they come up, and we'll see what happens. So the next thing is, how's your season been? You know, it's hard out there. It's really hard. People getting wiped out. It's not been great. I think if everybody's honest, people don't really know what the full reason is. Yes, we know birds of prey are a massive problem. Zandy's had pigeons come back hawked, cut to shreds. We know birds of prey are a major issue. But I don't think birds of prey are the only issue. I don't know what that issue is. Yes, people talk about 5G, pigeons not being as hard as they used to be, losing maybe some of their instincts and abilities. It's a sad state of affairs, I think, that I've said to Zandy, okay, you're competing in a club with people that halfway through the young bird season are sending 30 or 40 pigeons. So work back how many pigeons you've got to start off with next year for young birds to be competing. Because this year, as they were sending 30 or 40 pigeons in the club halfway through the young bird season, he was only sending a dozen or 15. And to a degree, certainly where your lofts are based and what have you, I still think it's to a degree a numbers game with young birds. So it's quite sad that I've said, how many do you want to hit half the season with, or being, well, half the young bird season with, and work back based on what you need? Hadn't used to be like that when I was his age 30 years ago. You could start with 30 pigeons and you'd end up, and you think you were hard done by if you finished with 25. What is the reason? Probably a multitude of reasons. Yes, we know birds of prey are a big problem, but they're not the only problem. They're not the only problem. And how can it change? I know people that have been wiped out. Saying that, I also know people that finished with a few from far between, but I know people that have finished with 90% of their pigeons that they started with this year, young birds. So who knows? But how's your season been? Brian Cheatham is watching. Thank you, Brian. What do you think are the problems? Tell me. Not as easy as it should be on this for chat, but like I said, I'm monitoring the page and I'm monitoring the group. So let me know. Yeah, what do you think are the issues? What's your season been like? I'd like to know. While we're waiting for any of that feedback to come in, we'll move on to something else. The next thing is who do you want to see on these podcasts? So the idea of these podcasts are, there's two types of podcast, all right? There's a quick 5 to 10 minute podcast, mainly of me or somebody else talking about a specific subject. Then there's the hour-ish podcasts of me interviewing or talking to somebody else. Who else do you want to see on these podcasts? Because they're the two types I do, 5-10 minutes max, about one subject or one thought that people can listen to and then come back to me on and interact on. And then there's the hour or so interview type podcasts where other people come on. So my second biggest podcast was Ian Evans's podcast. It was only second it was first up until last week before I put the One Loft stats out. Ian kind of came on, the ex-CEO of RPI came on, and a lot of people thanked me, messaged me for getting him on. He was very frank about his thoughts about the sport and his time there. Who else would you like to see me have on? Let me know. What I will say is I run 3 podcasts, 3 separate podcasts about different things. The RPI podcast is one of them, and I run 2 other podcasts about other things. And the RPI podcast is the most successful one in terms of viewers and listening at the moment, but it's also the hardest one to get people as a guest on. So for whatever reason, people don't like to be on camera, don't like to speak, whatever it may be. So I'm very keen to get as many people on here as possible from anywhere in the world, not just the UK and Ireland. Let me know who you would like. If you're listening to this on recorded, just go to racingpigeoninternational.com/contact and message me with who you would like on there. If you're listening on this, on the replay, as it were. Thomas Smith is. Thank you for tuning in, Thomas. And tell people about this as well. When I used to do the live shows every week, we used to get 150 people a week watching. So people need to now know that it's once a month on a Monday, first Monday of every month at 8 o'clock. So yeah. Mark Thompson's watching. So yeah, let me know who you want to see interviewed on here. A couple of things I'm looking to do with this long term is interview as many people as I can on these lives. So they won't all be live interviewed. There'll be some that are pre-recorded interviews. But it'd be nice to get people on here live to interview, so it's not just me talking for an hour. The other thing I'm looking at trying to do at some point is be able to get the ability for people to call into these shows live, kind of like a radio or a TV show. So people can call in live to discuss whatever it is they do. Yes, I probably might need a 7-second delay feature on there, but I'm looking at getting the ability for people to be able to call into these shows. That's something else I'm looking at as well. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. We're now going into the season of sales. It's already happening in a big way. You see more auctions popping up all the time. I've learned from the last few years that some of the best pigeons Zandy's got in his stock loft are pigeons that either gifted to him or he was not charged a great deal of money for. Saying that, some of the pigeons I've seen at auction coming up, especially the Elite Pigeon Auction site, there's been some stunning pigeons on there. As I said, Zandy's looking to cut down his stock even more because he's working full time and get more focused on specific pigeons and breeding out of them. We obviously have, moving on, we have a new CEO of the RPRA, Chris Sutton. I was pleased to hear that Chris had got the job. I don't mind telling you, I think he needs his head reading because the job he's got is a hard one, to say the least. But to be fair, if anybody I could think of, Chris is about the best suited to step up to the task ahead. I still say, Chris and I may disagree on this somewhat. I still say, fundamentally, the RPRA has got to change in its setup. I personally, and I know Chris thinks that it's a good thing and people need to start using their regions and start going to their clubs and using the system that's set up. I personally believe it needs to be more streamlined. At the end of the day, we've got about 18,500 RPRA members now. And as I've said, you get to a certain level of membership and things start getting to be an issue. So how do you stop the decline and how do you start the increase? And I wish Chris all the luck in the world. He lives local to me. I know Chris outside of pigeons as well, weirdly. But if anybody can do it, I spoke to him last week, he can do it. He's got some very good ideas on how he's going to move things forward. But ultimately, it needs people to take part. I was at our local club on the weekend. And there was only about a third of the active flyer members there. And this is voting on what our proposal for the next year's flying season is going to be, what program it's going to be. Now, some would say, yeah, it's a Saturday night and people have got other things to do. But at the same time, you can't have it always. Personally, I think one member, one vote should be the thing the RPRA goes with, so that anybody can vote, whether it be remotely or by post or whatever it may be. I think that's a big thing that needs to happen. It's only my personal opinion. But no longer can the RPRA be propped up by the British homing world. Things are changing. Things change all the time. The one certainty in this world is that change always happens. It's 3 years, over 3 years now since I got back publicly into pigeons. And what have I seen? Change. Not a great deal, if I'm honest. Some would say that flying's got harder. For normal pigeon flyers, it's got harder. Do we really know why that is, other than just a bird of prey problem, which is, like I've said, a problem? Do we know? I don't think we do. And what's sad is to see this sport continuing to decline. And I've said before, in other countries like Poland and Romania, it's growing. So what can we do to stop the rot and make the change? Not to where it's just staying flat in the numbers, but to where it's growing. I still insist there is no reason why long-term pigeon racing shouldn't be classed in a similar way to horse racing. It's an amazing sport. Obviously, we don't ride the pigeons, but we train them, just like horses are trained. Yes, we don't have a jockey, but we have somebody come in and at the end greeting them and feeding them when they come back. Bigger picture, I still think a problem is with the people in the sport. A lot of people don't want to see change. I know that I've had a massive resistance to ideas of change, to where, to a degree, you find yourself giving up with the idea. Yeah, I'm doing little bits like this RPI podcast. But there's a reason I set up Racing Pigeon International, because it's a worldwide sport. And the word international is important. If we were to do a poll now as to why racing has got so hard in the UK, I'm pretty sure birds of prey would come out on top. Maybe the over-medicating or the immune systems, lack of immune systems in pigeons is another reason. Maybe clashing. It makes no sense of all of these smaller feds taking their own transporters down to all these race points. Things need to start working together. Feds need to merge. But again, it comes down to people. And while you've got people involved, you're going to struggle because everybody's got their own different opinion. But something radically still needs to happen. And without the risk of sounding like a broken record that I've been saying off and on for the last 3 years, I worry that Zandy, at my age, I don't know what the sport's going to be like when he's in another 30 years' time. I don't know if it can survive as it is. And you got all these people saying about one loft races are not the way forward. No, they're not just a one loft race forward. Zandy wants to race his pigeons to his back garden the best he can. How can he continue to do that in years to come is what I worry about. One loft races are far from the be all and end all of the sport and a way of moving it forward. I think smaller races, smaller club one loft races, there's a lot of different things that can happen. The Brunswick one loft race, which is essentially a loft in the back of a pub ran by a few of the club members, was a great little final this year. They had, I don't know how many pigeons they had in, but they had run it as a little thing. It got the community together. These are the kinds of things. But where is the sport going to be like when Alexander turns 29 in 10 years' time or 39 in 20 years' time? Where's it going to be? And I'll do, despite what anybody thinks and says about me, I'll do whatever I can to help move it forward. but it does need moving forward. And fundamentally, the people involved in it are the people that are going to help make it go forward. That's the key to it. So let me know who you want on the RPI podcast live. Let me know. And think about what other features you want in this. It's not just about me speaking. I don't want it to just be me speaking. I want other people involved. Eventually, I'd like to have a call in so people can call in. And I know the podcasts I've done, the RPI podcasts I've done, people like listening to them. So the live thing, you know, at the end of the day, life's busy. 8 o'clock, first Monday of every month. Great. But of course, I'm doing it so that they're available at any time for people to listen to. Maybe, you know, one of the things with doing live, especially doing live weekly, is it's 8 o'clock on a Monday night. It's not necessarily the best time for people. People have got busy lives. And that's why the recordings of them are good. But I've had people saying they've been listening in their car on the way to work. People have been doing their job, listening to them on their phones. That's what I'm trying to make it easier for people to listen to them and more accessible. I think going back to the idea of clubs, factions of clubs, you know, we've got a lot of nationals. Something needs to happen there. So, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, what are we going to do to change it? Anybody, no matter where you are in the world, unless you're in China, Poland, or Romania, probably is seeing a decline in their numbers of this great sport we all love. How are we going to change it, especially in the UK and Ireland? No, not so much even Ireland, UK. How are we going to change it? What can happen? What fundamental shifts can happen to make it change? To where your kids, if they're interested, and mine can be continuing to race for years to come. We've got to figure it. And I hope and I wish all the best of luck to Chris Sutton as the new CEO of the RPRA for doing so. But he's got a massive uphill battle. He's got a lot of things to get a handle on, and he's got a lot to do to make that happen. Because some of the things I think are fundamentally flawed. It's my personal opinion. But I wish him all the best. I wish him all the best. Looking forward to shows. We've got Epsom coming up in the UK. I'm not sure I'll be there, but we've got Doncaster, which I'm planning to be there, and Blackpool in January. I'm looking forward to that. And again, those shows are a great way of people getting to see each other. I wish I was down in Algarve. I should have been down in the Algarve last weekend. Definitely be there. As Andy said, he definitely wants to go next year. Definitely be there. He's looking to put into some races. He's talking about going into the Algarve races as well. So yeah. And then with regards to talking about my other stuff for a few minutes, I'm doing a podcast, racingpigeoninternational.com. I'm looking to get more people to write for it, put more articles up there about anything to do with pigeons internationally. I have a few guests. I have a guest from America, a lovely lady that I'm waiting to get a date for her interview. She's going to be talking about racing in the US. I've got a few people I'm getting ready to schedule in, whether it'll be live or this one will probably be a pre-record. And I want to move it forward. One of the great things about having a podcast is anybody can listen to this. They don't have to be pigeon people. And eventually, let's hope that people outside of pigeons start listening to this and everything else. I've got something I've been wanting to do for a while called Athletes of the Sky. I want to do why is there no getting started book that I know of? There's obviously great online resources. There's no book about if somebody wants to start racing pigeons. Here's the book you need with input from other people, the people that are experts in their field. Why is there no that? Why is there no site that educates non-pigeon people about pigeons. And I've got an idea for something called Athletes of the Sky that I want to put together an information piece about pigeons and racing pigeons specifically that tells people what great animals these are and what a great sport it is. So yeah, we've got some ideas. One of the other things I'm going to be doing is, yes, of course, Benzing. I've got a list of all of the one-off races on the Benzing system, but that's not an exhaustive list. There's a lot more one-off races, especially in the US, that are not on Benzing. And one of the things I want to do is get a big list of all non-Chinese. It will be a worldwide list, but not including China, because that's fraught with all kinds of info and technical translation issues. I want to do that so people can see. One, it would be great to see the new races that come up and how it's growing as a different division of the sport. But I think it'd be a good information resource. And lastly, one of the things I'll talk about now, we're about up on the hour, but one of the things I talk about is I put out a little podcast, my test live podcast last week, asking people where they sold their pigeons, who they use, what they use to sell pigeons. And I had some feedback, good feedback. And again, I am a big fan of most of the auction sites, what they do, how they promote pigeons. I've got some friends that are auction people. But one of the things is that, like, for instance, Andy's got some of these stock pigeons to sell. He doesn't want to necessarily wait for those pigeons to be auctioned. He wants to list them himself. And I don't like the idea of him paying large commissions to do so. So after speaking to quite a few people, getting the feedback on things, I am working on a plan. There is no real international eBay for pigeons. There's no Gumtree as such. The ability that you can come and list pigeons, equipment for sale. We all know how Facebook is fraught with problems for livestock. And imagine a site that you could come, you've got an odd few pigeons to sell, you've got some equipment, a loft, whatever it may be, and it's completely free to sell if you're an individual selling. And for the first few months, whatever, businesses would be able to do it as well. But the way the site would make money is by just having businesses pay to be advertised on there or put their stores on there. But to you, the individual flyer, pigeon guy or girl, you could list pigeons, equipment, anything pigeon related for free. That's what I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Because I think, again, there's no Gumtree or eBay. All the auction sites are very specific. They all do a good job. Most of them do a good job. But there's no real international place where somebody in the US can see stuff that's easily accessible, that's for sale. One of the other things is that I've said this before, with so many auction sites at the moment, one of my ideas for a couple of years has been, with so many auction sites that are around, you can miss really good pigeons coming up at auction. And one of the things I'm looking into with what I'm working on is a way of bringing in from anybody that auction sites that want it, bringing in all of the auction listings into one place. So you can search and you can see this pigeon's on this auction site, this pigeon's on this auction site, in addition to listing pigeons for free. Because obviously there's a place for auction sites. We're not saying there's not. There's a place for auction sites. You know, I imagine a site you can come to and you can see all of the listings from all of the different auction places that want to be a part of it. It's more publicity for them, but from a customer point of view, it's a way of being able to see everything that's going on. So yeah, that's something else. So anyway, I'm going to call it a day today. I'm going to wrap up this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you've watched live, thank you for being part of this first proper live RPI podcast. If you're listening on repeat, let me know using the contact form at racingpigeoninternational.com who you would like to see, what you would like me to talk about, who you want me to interview on these. First Monday of every month will be the RPI Live Podcast at 8 o'clock UK time. Thanks for watching. Go to podcast.racingpigeoninternational.com and you'll see the subscribe button when you can subscribe via Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon Music, and a whole bunch more. And every time I put out a new podcast, if you subscribe, you'll get it straight to your phone or your device or whatever it may be, and you'll get a notification. So podcast.racingpigeoninternational, the thing that's running down there. Go and check that. We've got hundreds, if not thousands of people listening now a month. It's going great. Be part of it. Podcast.racingpigeoninternational.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will catch you on the next live next month in November. Scarily, November is upon us in a month's time. In the meantime, go and listen to some of the other podcasts that I put out as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Catch you soon.
You've been listening to the RPI Podcast. Check out more episodes at podcast.racingpigeoninternational.com.